I am in the hot seat this week with Flora White from Evolution Now. She asked me some good questions. I share my experiences as a 56-year-old freshman at Columbia, why I think it's important to challenge yourself and to try new things. The science is saying if we want to stay bright and healthy, we need to be creative. You can have a whole new identity if you want to pursue that creative impulse that always was maybe in the back of your mind. Listen now to my interview with Flora White, and I would love to hear if you're embarked on your own creative journey.
Welcome to Evolution Now, Season 2. Welcome to this episode of Evolution Now. I'm your host, Flora White, and today I am so excited to be speaking with the Betsy Bush, host of Your Creative Midlife podcast. Today, Betsy and I are going to talk about the health benefits of arts. We're going to talk about her return to undergraduate college at Columbia University. And we're going to talk about social prescribing. If you're not familiar with that term, tune in, as well as arts resources, things you can do to take part in the arts right here in your backyard in Westchester. Betsy, good morning. Thank you for being here on Evolution Now with me today.
Oh, Flora, this is so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start with a little bit about yourself. So you're a resident of Westchester. You've been here for 25 years.
That's right.
And Betsy, you've been a resident of Westchester County for 25 plus years. And during that time, you've contributed so much to our community. Can you tell us a little bit about all that you've done as a mother raising a family, as well as all the other roles you've played within Westchester County?
Oh, well, I've really enjoyed living in Westchester, and I'm still living in Westchester, even though my kids are off living adult lives. I was a program officer with the Westchester Community Foundation, which is now known as the New York Community Trust Westchester, and that was a great way to get to know so many people in the county, so many service providers, and to really appreciate what a vibrant community Westchester is, and all sorts of services. And I've really come to admire Westchester as a community. And then I've been very active at my church at Hitchcock Presbyterian, and it's a great place that is reaching out to the community, activates a lot of volunteers to go out and do other things, Midnight Run going into the city, the Ecumenical Food Pantry in White Plains. They have a thrift shop that has just incredible stuff that is very well priced and provides a lot of goods to people who need lower priced items for their household or clothing. So it's a lot of fun. Plus, we do beautiful music on Sundays, and that's also been a very big part of my life, too.
Would you like to speak to your role at West Hab as well, serving?
Oh, yes. And I've also, through my work at the foundation, the community foundation, I got to know West Hab. And the very young now executive director, Rich Nightingale. I've known him for years and years. And I've been on the board of West Hab for, I think, about 6 years now. I greatly admire this organization, the people who sit on the board. It's an extremely ethical, client-based, or client-focused organization, and they're doing incredible work, not only in Westchester, but now they're doing a lot of work in the city. They're actually building new shelters and a lot of very transitional housing for people to transition them from unhoused to finding their own apartments. But this is a great place. They have great places for them to get their lives together, services and things like that. Mm-hmm. And we all know in the city it's very hard to find affordable housing. So they're really meeting a need that's critical.
If you want to get these episodes delivered directly to your inbox, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. What is the mission of West Hab?
West Hab's mission is building communities and helping people, helping children and families get a foothold, a solidity to their lives that allows them to flourish and add to our community. It's
Terrific.
it's a great organization. I wouldn't be involved if I didn't believe in it.
Well, I know that's true. And in addition to all of that, Betsy, you're now host of Your Creative Midlife.
Yes.
Which is an art podcast
Yes.
that talks about the benefits of art and all of your favorite latest art exhibits that you've taken in and now that you are going to be featured in. Why don't we talk a little bit about Your Creative Midlife and what inspired you to create it and your favorite things about hosting that podcast?
I started podcasting. One thing you should know about me is when my last kid went off to college about 10 years ago, I decided I really needed a new challenge. I didn't really want to go back to work, but I needed something challenging that would really challenge my mind and kind of it broaden my horizons. And I got the interesting idea to apply to Columbia's School of General Studies. This is the non-traditional route for students to the undergrad program at Columbia. And I was accepted. And I spent 4 incredible years getting a second undergraduate degree. And my major was architecture. I had originally applied to their sustainable development program. But when I got there, I realized it was very science-based at that time. And I didn't have much high school science. I didn't take organic chemistry in
didn't either.
high school. And even if I had, it would have been 40 years ago. So I had to find another program, and they said, "What are you interested in?" And I said, "Well, I'm interested in how do you bring the environment into urban spaces." And they said, "Well, it sounds like urban planning or even architecture." So I ended up majoring in architecture, which was extremely difficult. If you think, oh, draft boards and T-squares, no. Everything now is done on computer. All the renderings are done on computer. And I had to learn the three-dimensional AutoCAD, which I can't say I mastered it. I did it well enough to do my classwork, but some of the core curriculum classes were really what I loved about going back to school and seeing things from a new perspective. I mean, believe me, we've learned a lot in 40 years. I graduated from NYU in 1982, so here I was in 2016 back with students. My colleagues were my kids' age, and it was mind expanding. And I almost felt like I could feel new neural pathways being forged in my head. I mean, I would literally feel like my head was different. It wasn't a migraine. It wasn't a headache. My head felt different. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. More people my age should do something like this because it really gives you a new perspective on life. And it gives you an appreciation also for what younger generations are dealing with and what the world looks like from their viewpoint. And I found that moving and honestly a little disturbing when you think about, I was in a climate science class and you look at the data points that have been collected over the past 40, 50 years, and you see how the climate is changing drastically. And I thought, if I can sit through this for an hour or two and understand how climate is changing, why can't our legislators in Washington do the same thing? Give these people an hour and let them explain why they are saying what they're saying. It was really a moment of truth for me. The world that we're living in now is not the world I grew up in the 70s, and many legislators are older than I am, or you have a mindset where you think the world is immutable, it's never going to change. Wrong. Go look at the science, the data points, and the data points will tell you, no, things are changing and we need to do something. And I feel like now at this moment, this was all 10 years ago. Now at this moment, we've almost given up, and that's really depressing. But anyway.
It's true. Our goals in the Northeast have gotten a lot less ambitious in the past few years.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, but that's a little bit of a downer. I'm sorry about that.
It's a fact, and it's
Yeah.
important that this is a platform to talk about everything that's on my guest's mind, and it doesn't have to be exactly about the thing we're here to talk about. It can
Right,
be
right,
about
right.
anything.
But that was one of the experiences of going back to school.
Right.
And then I graduated into the pandemic. I graduated in May 2020, and we didn't have an in-person graduation, though Columbia made it up to us 2 years later. And as many people from the class of 2020 could make it back to the Columbia campus, we all actually had an in-person graduation in 2022, which was wonderful.
And Betsy, you graduated cum laude.
Cum laude, yes. And may I just say that that last semester, because half of the semester was, there was so much disruption in the last half of the semester was on Zoom, and they changed everything from letter grades to pass-fail, which makes sense. If we had had letter grades, I think I would have been summa cum laude, but...
I have no doubt.
Yeah, well, it's funny, you think at this age, oh, I could easily, why couldn't I should be getting all A's. And honestly, it's hard.
The learning curve must have been really steep. I mean, I don't think I could have gone in there and learned CAD on the computer.
It was hard. I never got an A in any of my architecture classes. You're not supposed to, your major is supposed to be where you find your strength, but I found the core curriculum classes were fabulous. And the other thing I would say is undergraduates today any student today, you have access online to every academic journal out there. You can download as PDFs every article. So when you do a term paper, you have this vast amount of material to work with, which I found incredible. I mean, when I was at NYU, when I didn't do that many term papers, you go to the library, you go through the card catalog, maybe you'd have a stack of 7 books to work with, and you wrote your paper based on those 7 books. But today, there's this huge amount of data that's open to you, and I found that exciting. And I felt like with every term paper, I had discovered something. And that was pretty cool. And so that was fun.
And did that discovery, Betsy, plant the seed of more curiosity for you? Did that lead you to what is now your creative midlife?
I would say it gave me a sense of confidence and a sense that I was doing something different than my peers and that I had something exciting to share. Not everyone wants to hear the message of maybe you should go back to school.
Well, it sounds hard.
It does sound hard. But interestingly, there are a lot of programs on college campuses now. They're starting to realize that there's a whole generation, older generation, that is open to this idea of learning. We're in this interesting demographic trough where there are fewer 18-year-olds coming into the higher education system, and there are a lot of people 65 and older, and it's just going to continue this way. And so how can colleges and universities best make use of all of their infrastructure and their classrooms and their professors? There is a whole group of active midlifers, retirees who would love to learn more about history, literature, music, art, all these things that maybe they did not have time for when they were undergrads, or they didn't take seriously, or, sitting in the classroom when I was, you look at your peers and they're worried about, who likes me, who am I in the outs with, what am I going to do on Saturday night, dealing with parents, and I'm like, I'm here to learn.
Right.
And it was just satisfying in that way to just learn. And I loved that. And I think a lot of my peers would love that too. So there are universities, and actually we should mention Purchase has an assisted living institution facility on the campus. And I haven't explored this much, but there are opportunities for those residents to audit classes in the classrooms at Purchase.
Okay.
And there are all sorts of, because Purchase is the performing arts campus, there are a lot of performances that they can attend. And even the Newberger Art Museum is doing art classes for 55 plus. So there's interesting things happening even here in Westchester.
Certainly, and this is a great transition to the Juilliard Extension program.
Yes.
Now you've done work with this institution, and Betsy, you've worked in this space. You interviewed the dean of the Juilliard Extension, John Morgan Bush, to talk about the programming that they offer there. What are some of the benefits that you spoke about with the dean?
Oh, there's so many interesting benefits to seniors, and I don't even know how to classify this group, midlifers, 55 plus, retirees. They have a wonderful extension program, which I didn't even know about. We know about Juilliard as being the premier music performance school, right? Music, singing, dance, drama, for the best of our young musicians and the best of our young people. But they also have an extension program, and half of those students are 65 plus. And I'm like, how did I not know about this? They have people who are learning musical instruments, maybe picking things up for the first time, or since they were kids and, had to put decided they weren't interested. And now it's like, after 50 years, I would really like to learn how to play piano. That's something that's been missing from my life, or, something like that. You even have people doing an early morning dance class, learning music theory, or, some of the getting into the nuts and bolts of music making, music appreciation, music history. And they're also doing a lot of outreach to assisted living communities, senior living communities, with live streaming classes for those communities with their regular faculty. It's really exciting. The interesting science about creativity and older people is that there are real benefits that they're able to document now about getting creative, about practicing being creative in art or music or whatever, or even just going to galleries and looking at art, or going to a live concert and listening to music, attending a dance performance, that there are synapses that are firing in different ways, that this really has health benefits that we are now beginning to appreciate. And it's interesting because it's not getting the attention you would think it would get. I think if this were a pill, if this were pharmaceutical of some sort, if you could say to someone, if you take this pill, you could slow down the onset of dementia by 43%, everyone would want it, right? It would be a miracle drug. Well, being active in the arts and being creative yourself could actually slow the onset of dementia by 43%. And you wonder, why are we not shouting this from the rooftops? I have a suspicion that if someone could be making money off of this, it would be everywhere. If this were the latest lifestyle drug, people would be willing to pay huge amounts of money to have access to a drug that had the kind of benefits that being creative, being involved in artistic activities has. There's a wonderful book out right now. It's fairly new out. It's called Art Cure, by a professor in the UK. Her name is Daisy Fancourt. And she has spent decades researching this and documenting evidence in the UK, and also bringing studies together from other parts of the world. This is a real thing. And I have to believe that we have separated ourselves from the activities that were considered so normal and everyday, 100 years ago, where we were sewing, we were knitting, we were playing the piano,
Working with our hands.
Going out to hear music or theater or that sort of thing. We weren't sitting at home just watching television or watching screens all day. This has been an interesting lifestyle shift that has actually been bad for our health and our brains, and especially as we get older, the brain health concerns that we have.
Is there science that says that those are connected to all of the screens? And
I think there is a lot of, now this is not my area of expertise. That's certainly, I think, the point Daisy Fancourt is making. I think there's also, is it Jonathan Haidt, who's making the point of young people, children, and teens, how our addiction to screens is changing.
right, screenagers,
Screenagers is changing
our brain chemistry,
our attention spans,
indeed,
things like that. So, but anyway, we're
here now, and we're in a renaissance. We're in an art renaissance, and
there's an interesting pull towards what they're calling analog activities. And I think even young people are finding this out. I want to do something with my hands. I want to do ceramics. I want to do painting. My new interest is collage, because I find it's
why is collage having a renaissance?
I think there are two things. First is there's a very low barrier to entry. It's very easy to step right into it as a first-timer and come away with something where you can say, oh, that was fun, or I'm happy with this, or I want to try this again, right? It's not like trying to draw or paint and it's like, oh, this looks really bad. I'm not good at this.
You can't really mess it up.
You can't really mess it up. And there's so many different ways you can do collage that there are a lot of different options for you. You can do something that's abstract. You can do something that has a narrative or an idea behind it. When you juxtapose two images that don't normally go together, and it's like suddenly, ooh, what are we saying here,
And speaking of that, Betsy, what are some of the materials that you use for your collages?
Oh, well, let's see. I use old books. I use some magazines. Sadly, we don't have as many magazines as we used to. There are people who have amassed vast collections of National Geographics or Vogue or things like that, and or you can find old Life magazines in thrift stores or flea markets and things like that, and those are great for all sorts of things, especially things if you feel like there's a narrative behind it.
Yeah.
I got inspired in collage when I saw what my old college roommate was doing with her collage. She just started in retirement, and her name is Leela Kokoris Goldstein, and I've interviewed her on Your Creative Midlife.
And she made a pivot.
From corporate communications, and suddenly she is deeply into the world of collage. There are online groups. There's all sorts of people who get together and do collages. What she loves to do on weekends is go to flea markets or places where you could pick up ephemera. It could be old envelopes with old stamps or old photographs, postcards, all sorts of things. Leela loves to, or at least one of the things I like about her work is she'll take old magazines with the ladies in the 50s dresses and put them together with, a lot of cigarettes. So it's like, okay, you are out there being perfect, but when you're back in the kitchen, it's like, where are my smokes, It can be very satiric, or again, you're putting across an idea, or you're just putting something together just to see. I love collage. For me, it's the art form of the 21st century for everyone.
You're making me want to do collage.
Yeah, there we go.
And I think you have an event coming up that you're hosting.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Several different events on the horizon.
Yeah. I even got a suggestion from West Hab that I do, a collage class for some of they have a
residents.
They have a senior residence, and I think it's New Rochelle, where it would be a fun thing for residents to do. Again, you don't need a lot of skill. You have agency. You're making your own choices, your own decisions. It's all entirely you. And
which piece do I put there?
Exactly. What colors, what images. At a time of life when maybe a lot of people don't have agency and control, to be able to say, this is mine, and I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to put this here, I'm going to put this image here, I'm going to put this here, and it's going to be this color. That could be really satisfying for people who don't necessarily have a lot of control over other parts of their lives.
If you want to get these episodes delivered directly to your inbox, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Well, it's so great that you're bringing that empowerment to our community here in Westchester, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the different ways that you share these workshops that you're going to be hosting with folks all across the county. So look out for more about that.
I'd also like to say Westchester has a lot of resources. If you're someone who's thinking, oh, this sounds really interesting, how do I get involved? I would start with Arts Westchester, the Arts Westchester website. I Googled Art Center near me, and I came up with the Pelham Art Center, which was only 20 minutes away from my house, and I didn't know about it at all.
And now
having
a show.
And now I'm going, right. One of my first collages was actually accepted into one of their gallery exhibits.
Congratulations, Betsy.
Thank you. I'm excited. It's funny because, as I was telling one of my other guests, Bob Vaselis, who was a fellow student of mine whose art is also going to be on exhibit, I said, the problem with getting in the first time is now you're always thinking, will my second and my third efforts be as good as my first? I think there's a lot of interesting things that happen when you create or you start down this path. And I think the first thing you need to realize is this is a process. It is not a destination. This is a practice where you can continue to get better, you can continue to iterate this idea of new versions, keep developing. When you're product-oriented, that shuts down everything.
And you gained this from your time at Columbia, right?
I did, yes. When I was in architecture, this was what the professors wanted to see. They didn't want to see a finished piece the first time. It's like, okay, now what? Keep developing that idea. And that was very hard to get used to. It's like, yeah, but this is great. It's like, no, I want to see more development. This is what you need to do as an architect, is keep developing the idea. And I would think any creative person, don't be satisfied with the first version of anything. To keep going and see where it takes you. And also not to be so concerned with perfection, because that will kill it right there. That will kill your creative juices. You have to be willing to experiment. You have to be willing to play. You hear the word play a lot when people are talking about creating art. And it's going back to that kind of childhood thing of playing and experimenting. And sometimes what the kids come up with when they're just playing is actually pretty cool. As an adult, you can bring something you bring context, which is good, but you also have in your head what you want something to look like before you get there.
Right. Because in the real world, we have to do that, right? We have to plan. It's almost the opposite of, it's like unlearn everything that you know.
Unlearn everything that you know. It's interesting. I've been reading a lot about how children learn versus the progression through school. And you have to think, kids are so creative when they're 5. But then when they get to high school, very few of them will think they're creative. And why is that? It's because they've learned there's a right answer and a wrong answer. And if you want to get ahead, you need to know the right answer. If you want to be an inventor has to be creative. right? Think of all the technology we wouldn't have if someone hadn't said, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? Inventing scientific research all depends on, and art itself, new music, literature, all these things, even interpretations of where do we go now as a society. You need creativity to help you figure that out. And yet our schools are all about kids checking the right box, right? Thinking about the SATs, right? Filling in the right oval.
This culture of certainty, where does it come from?
Right. Yeah. So we kind of squeeze the creativity out of kids as they get older. And I think maybe a lot of people end up doing things that make them unhappy. Maybe they would have gone. An
accountant that's sad because they didn't get to compose music.
No. Well, but also, is there room in our lives, our professional lives, to also have a creative thing on the side? And I think about myself as a young professional. Could I have continued to have creative photography as a hobby, or music as a hobby, alongside my 50-hour or 60-hour week, work week? And we've structured our lives in a way that makes that, and we also devalue the music. We also devalue the painting or the photography, unless you're someone who's like, I'm not going to give this up. But most of us, it's time to set this aside.
You do that so well, Betsy. You make art a part of your daily life. It's not like something that you have to fit in. It's just part of what you do. You sing in the choir at church. You're president of the New Choral Society. You attend arts and cultural events. And these are things that are both high and low. Yes, you've traveled recently to Paris, and I'd love to hear more about your trip there and what you saw and some of the American influences that you saw on the streets of Paris.
Well, there was this really wonderful thing. I was walking the streets of Paris close to Place Vendôme, which is, the most glamorous part of Paris, where all that high-end jewelry stores are. And I think the Ritz, the hotel, the Ritz, is in Place Vendôme. So everything that kind of radiates out of that is really. And the Gallery Gagosian is there. And they were having their store windows, their shop windows, had recreated the basement of Joseph Cornell, who lived in a frame house in Queens. He lived from 1903 to 1972, and this is where he did his work, was this basement of this little house in Queens. They lived there from 1929 to 1969. And he would walk around New York gathering all sorts of interesting ephemera, little things, forgotten things, or old books. And when I say ephemera, it's usually paper goods, calendars, programs, newspapers, magazines, the things
Pieces
that people,
of history.
And things that people would usually throw away. He would collect, and he would make these beautiful shadow boxes, almost like 3D collages. And I was absolutely entranced. I had read about him, but I don't think I'd ever seen any of his work. And I just found it enchanting. And so here I was, it was maybe 4, 5 street level windows. And I was just taking this all in. And what was interesting to me was all the folks who were walking back and forth to Place Vendôme, not even looking at this remarkable exhibit. And here I was taking pictures and really soaking it in. Joseph Cornell never came to Paris. He thought of Paris, as many of us do, as like this magical place that we know so well through a lot of pictures and renderings of some sort, magical renderings of Paris and the Eiffel Tower and all these sorts of things. So there was that connection to Paris. But
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I was just, I think when you approach things with an open mind and try to look at things for what they are and not be so dismissive, it's very rewarding. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I didn't know that Joseph Cornell had never been to Paris, and then through his art, he made it there.
Yeah.
And here you are, an American from New York, coming to Paris and then taking in his art and noticing it, recognizing it.
Yeah, and I just stumbled upon it. It wasn't something I had looked for. I find things like that very rewarding, being able to take in things from different eras, different places. That was also a trip where we went to the Cluny Museum, which is the medieval art museum. And I find medieval art just so interesting.
Me too.
Yeah, and their renditions of the renderings of different saints. It's an interesting era. I think.
Well, and it's a piece. Art serves as a historical marker for the times, and if we didn't create art, which in that moment may not seem valuable, we wouldn't have these moments to look back on.
Yeah.
So they do serve a purpose, I think, and they appreciate with time. You've had a number of guests on your show, Betsy. Yep. What are some of the biggest pivots or surprising things that you've heard on your program, which I know is gaining a lot of interest and a lot of people are really starting to catch on to?
Yeah. Well, I found one of my most interesting pivots. Well, there are two I can think of, two writers. One is Dan Moretti, who is an attorney. He actually grew up in Scarsdale. And he started writing one-act plays during a vacation not too long ago. And in the first play, kind of drawing a little bit on his legal background. And I think when you're someone who's in court representing different types of people, you see every kind of human.
It's kind of like a script going back and forth in a way.
Yeah, and this was
interesting.
Yeah, so and he had and he not only wrote the script, but it was produced in workshop with equity actors. And he's had a couple more like that. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And he describes how you get into the world of the workshopping of scripts and the actors you get to meet and directors. Someone takes an interest in your work and then they recruit actors. And it's introduced him to a whole new world. And it's really gotten him excited about what comes after retirement. There's a very appealing pivot there for him. Another interesting one, someone also based in Westchester and Scarsdale, is Graham Broyd. He's a British American who came over to the States for the first time as a 20-year-old with a scholarship to do research at the Library of Congress. And for reasons he explains very well, he decided he wanted to actually start by flying to Los Angeles so that he could surf on Malibu Beach. And then he thought, I'll just hitchhike back to Washington.
So cool.
So cool. And I don't want to spoil too much because it's really worth reading his story. But he had all sorts of adventures on his way back to Washington. It wasn't a straight line. He met all sorts of people and had some very interesting, improbable adventures. And he has a great way of talking about it. So that book he as a writer caught the attention of the Forbes publishing arm. And so it was professionally produced and published, and it's done extremely well. When you think about how many books are published and the average book sells not very many copies, it's kind of discouraging. But Graham has sold thousands. And he recorded an audiobook version, and there's a Kindle version as well as a hard copy. So
it's incredible.
It's incredible, and it's got him going on his next book, which should be out this summer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it is possible to do things, and I think you just need to now. I mean, Graham's experience is exceptional. There are a lot of people. I interviewed someone who also had his first book published that did well, Chris Shirley. You have to accept the fact, he says, I write because I love to write. And people who want to write a book need to realize that you have to write for your own sake and accept the fact that unless you are determined to self-publish, finding an agent, finding a publisher to go out, it could take years. And maybe you don't want to wait years. Maybe you just want to get it out. publish your book. I'm happy with it. I want to see it in print. And that's also a logical, totally acceptable
Way to go.
Way to go. That's right. So there are lots of things. I think understanding that this is something you do for its own sake. When we were younger, and you wanted to write a book, you thought, oh, I want to make it on the, New York Times bestseller list, and that's what I'm aiming for. And I think as we get older, our sense of what is successful changes. How do I define success for me might be I'm living a life where I have the leisure time and the ability to sit down and write my book. That's huge, to have the agency to say, I want to do my painting, I want to do my collaging, I want to do my ceramics.
Yes.
And I've arranged my life in retirement so that I can do that, regardless of what anyone thinks of my work. It's satisfying to me.
You hit on a good point here,
Yeah.
because art does not have to be for everybody. It can be, like you said earlier, Betsy, it's about the process, about the satisfaction of having created a product. Mm-hmm. And often just moving on to the next one, not lingering on the outcome, but just enjoying that creation.
Yeah. Well, if you listen to artists, the first thing they'll say is, once you try to please someone, that's it. Forget about it. You are no longer an artist, right? An artist follows his or her own path, and you need to do something that's satisfying to you. That's what people will respond to, as opposed to something that you might see,
That's more commercial.
That's more commercial. And
it's designed to drive revenue, right?
That's right. That's right. I think when you look at the great works of art, they're the things that have not been tried before, have not been expressed in quite that way before, that come from a very particular vision of what that person has. It's not.
They're not safe. Because it's a path not traveled.
Exactly. It's not the crowd pleaser. There might be room for a crowd pleaser, if you're doing a movie or whatever. But I think those artistic things that the world needs are the things that come from a very particular vision, experience, personality. And I think that's worth trying to get to. Especially when you're older, and how much longer am I going to, why would I try to please someone else, right?
What am I saving it for?
Exactly. Who am I saving it for?
Yeah,
I like that.
And it's never too late to.
No, it is. It's never too late to follow the muse, right? That you maybe has been there your whole life, and it's like, oh, I don't have time for this. Oh, I don't have time for that. Find the time. This is the other thing I keep hearing. Do it now.
Do it now.
Do it now.
Your passion needs to be stronger than your excuses.
Exactly. Or, you could be looking back. I mean, these days of what we're calling the new longevity, there were a lot of people who are living much longer than maybe they expected. Maybe their health is actually pretty good going into 70s, 80s. Why look back at 90 and say, my gosh, I retired at 65. These past 25 years, I could have been doing something. I could have written 5 books, right? I could have been painting. I could have been whatever. Why didn't I try to do that?
And pass forward all of the context and perspective that you've gained throughout all these years. It's like now you're ripe to share it.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Yeah. So, Betsy, for anyone who wants to do what you're doing, and no one can ever do what Betsy's doing, so don't try. But for anyone interested in getting into the arts, what would you say to them?
Oh, I would say look around at local resources. And here in Westchester, we have a lot. Look at the art centers. The Arts Westchester website is a good place to start. Look at the community college. Westchester Community College has art classes, film classes, photography, something like the Scarsdale Arts Adult School has decoupage, collage, things like that. Look at the Ys, the JCCs. There are all sorts of things available. I can't tell you everything that's happening in every community, but when I start to go through online, it's like, wow, I'm surprised. There are all these little things set aside. And here's the other thing. If you're active at I don't know, a senior center or a Y or a JCC, and there isn't something on offer, maybe ask about it. Hey, could we have a collage class? It's, again, low barrier to entry, very inexpensive, right? You need some paper, you need some old magazines or tissue paper and glue sticks and scissors.
Right. You could do it at home.
You could do it at home. And there, that's another good thing. There are a lot of online resources. If you want a beginning watercolor class, there's things online. Oh, the libraries. I know the Scarsdale Library might have some, they have a new, very nice new facility.
Yes, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. I think Greenberg Library might have something. Seek out these things. I think one thing about the idea of creativity and brain health and things like that is there's a little bit of friction, right? You need to get yourself out of your old routine.
Right, that's where the growth happens.
That's where the growth happens. You don't want to just keep doing the same thing all the time. You need to kind of go to a different place. And that's one of the valuable things is, Pelham Art Center. I've never been there. I had to figure out how to get there.
Go somewhere new.
Go somewhere new. And also, what's nice about a class is you're socializing. You're getting to know other people. You're sharing the experience. As an artist, it's great to see what other people are doing. Like, how did you do that? What material is that? What brush did you use? What paint did you use? That's a really important part of the whole experience is this getting out of your rut and doing something new.
Right.
If you wanted to do something in the city, there's the Art Students League. I had a nice tour from one of the board members, John Niepler, who was also a guest on Your Creative Midlife. He was very excited to show me all the classrooms. It's on West 57th Street, close to Carnegie Hall, and anyone can sign up. These aren't places where you have to apply and be accepted. You sign up and you find an instructor whose artwork you like already, and you walk into a class. They give you a locker for a certain period of time so you don't have to schlep your art materials all over the place. And that's another way to do it. So there are all sorts of ways, but again, you have to kind of wake up your brain.
Right. Art is everywhere.
Art is everywhere. And here we are, we're so close to the city. I love Westchester, and there's a lot going on here. Oh, the Hudson River Museum is another
Yonkers, right.
fabulous place. They have wonderful exhibits all the time. Again, as a program officer at the foundation, I was there a lot. And these are places I think need to be better known and better, used and visited by people living in Westchester. Yeah, wake up your brain, right?
Wake up your brain. Yeah. I love that as a call to action. And one great way to wake up your brain is to sign up for the Your Creative Midlife newsletter if you want to stay in touch, learn what's happening out there in the art world. If you don't have the time to curate all of these resources yourself, we're doing it for you. Right. Betsy's got all of the information there. So follow along, follow the fun. There's a concept out there now that's gained popularity. It's social prescribing. I know Daisy Fancourt mentions it in her book, The Art Cure, but it's also out there in blogs and in newspapers and magazines. A lot of people are talking about it now. Can you share with us what social prescribing is and how it relates to the arts?
Sure. It's actually a very simple concept, which is doctors in the UK, Ireland, Canada are saying to patients who are not feeling well, maybe isolated, depressed, you need to go to a museum, go hear a concert, take an art class, that they're actually prescribing to people that part of your, and it's not replacing medication, but it's working in concert with any medications. Go out and get involved in an art class.
And doctors are actually prescribing
They're
this?
actually prescribing. It's unclear to me whether this is like something that you have to do. It's one of these things like, if I suggested you do this and it will be good for you, will you comply with it? And 70% actually comply with the doctor's suggestion or the prescription to go to an art museum, go hear a concert, take part in an art class. And in Daisy Fancourt's book, Art Cure, she has some really interesting examples of people who have come out of deep depression, deep mental illness, after getting involved in an art class where you get encouragement, you have a sense of mastery, you discover that you have a talent. It helps you express your inner feelings that might otherwise be unacceptable, coming out in different ways. It's a wonderful way to fit in things that maybe you might have been encouraged to do in another era. But in these days when we tend to medicalize everything, and also there's a huge cost savings if you're saying to someone, instead of my giving you an additional drug, which by the way, probably has side effects that are not good, but you have to balance, the good with the side effects, the bad side effects. What are the side effects of painting a picture or singing in a choir?
Or what are the halo effects, right? It's all positive. It's the opposite.
Exactly. And it also supports the arts community in your area. I mean, you can imagine how great it would be for all these people to start showing up in art galleries, museums, concerts, going to art classes, who might not otherwise go, except that a doctor said, I think this would really help. This is really
I have
something
to go
you
to
should
the
be
ballet
doing.
because my doctor told me.
That's right. So it's an interesting idea that people here in the States are starting to talk about. Of course, the UK, Ireland are kind of far ahead of us. They've folded it into their National Health Service regimen.
In the meantime, we don't have these prescriptions here in the States yet, but we can think about approaching the arts in those terms. Maybe we need to recognize when we need to take in some arts and culture, right, Betsy?
Yes. Just realizing that the art should be for everyone. It shouldn't be seen as a nice to have or something frivolous or something that only certain people do. The art should really be available for everyone and understanding that everyone will benefit. And there are a lot of free things you can do, right? There are a lot of free galleries and free museums, especially in Westchester. Think of the Arts Westchester Gallery on
Saturdays.
On Saturday in White Plains, right?
Absolutely.
There are all sorts of things you can do that don't cost anything. It just means like getting out of your routine and saying, I'm going to do this today. That'll take me to a different place. And that in itself is part of what makes doing the arts thing beneficial,
So
is it
valuable.
gets you out of your rut, right? It gets you out of your thing, which I think is something that taking a pill would not give you.
No, it would not,
Right.
because it doesn't require a behavioral change.
Exactly.
Well, that is so interesting, and I hope we bring social prescribing here to the States.
I think we should. And you don't need a prescription to take part in any of this. That's the other interesting thing. But maybe some people need the encouragement.
And Betsy, the one question that I always ask my guests is, you're a high-functioning, accomplished professional and mother and wife. How do you do it all? What is your secret? What's your morning routine? What would you tell others?
I would say see how much you can get done before 9 a.m. I mean, I wake up at, I don't know, we're pretty early risers, but if you can get a lot done at 9, before 9, whether it's answering emails or doing those little niggly things that need to get taken care of, answered or sent off or whatever, do that first. Once you do that, that opens up a lot of your day. I've been trying to prioritize doing something creative in the morning, like getting out my collage or my little analog book and doing some little drawing with my markers and just seeing, let's refresh our brains for a little bit. And I always have something going music-wise with the church choir. We have such a wonderful music director.
John King.
King.
Dr. John King.
Dr.
Right?
John King, and just wonderful music that just reverberates in my brain through the week. And that's been a big part of my connection to art and music has been through that. That's always part of my life, and that's extremely rewarding.
And you sing in different languages. You sing in German, English. You speak German.
I speak German. In church, we often have texts in Latin, which is always a challenge. The only time I think we've sung anything in German was when we sang Ode to Joy I was kind of a guest member of the chorus for the New Choral Society when we joined with the Purchase College Symphony Orchestra and Chorus to be part of that. And that was just amazing. And that gave me an opportunity to go deep into that text. I think everyone knows the first few lines are very familiar, but to understand the text deeper into the music was really, really rewarding. And, also, if you're interested in learning a language, I think it's worthwhile learning French or learning Spanish or what were you doing in high school? Most of us took a language then and then immediately dropped it. Mm-hmm. But it can be fun to pick it up again because I think we all like to, if we travel, be able to understand a few things, say a few things.
Yep, and form those neural pathways.
Yeah,
like you
that's
talked
right.
about.
That's right.
Well, Betsy, you're an inspiration to me. I feel privileged that I'm getting to learn from your perspective at early midlife so that I can carry it through for my hopefully next 40 years. And I'm going to do what you do, wake up early, do everything before 9, and do a little coloring, open up the brain, wake up the brain. It's so inspiring. Thank you so much for being here today.
Flora, this has been so much fun. I appreciate being asked, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and I hope you come back and see us again.
I always will.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you can catch new episodes of Evolution Now.
I'd love to know if you're doing something creative in your midlife. Please reach out to me at yourcreativemidlife.com. And if you liked us, please give us a thumbs up and leave a review. Thanks again. I'm Betsy Bush.